What are Scientific Mornye's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. Okay, the most obvious pro in regards to this character is that she's going to be a Shorekeeper Alternative. That's right, Kuro Games has finally made another third slot teammate that is actually going to be somewhat universal. I say somewhat because I do not believe that her buffs are going to be as strong as Shorekeeper's, simply because Shorekeeper is that powerful of a unit. However, I do believe that in general, she is going to be quite the universal character. She is going to likely have her specialty within Toon Break teams, but I do believe that she is generally going to be able to support a large variety of team comps. This unit is going to be a valuable addition to any Wuthering Waves account. It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner player or if you've been playing the game for a long time. This character is going to be extremely useful to you. And while I don't expect her to be better than Shorekeeper, as that is simply a really high bar to reach, we'll have to wait until her official release to test that out, I do believe that at the very least, she is likely to become better than Verena. So, at the very least, your middle tower teams will be getting an upgrade no matter what if you're still using Verena. And I also wouldn't be surprised if within Toon Break teams, Mornye does end up being on the level of Shorekeeper, if not better. Once again, that is something that we're going to have to test out, and I am not saying that she is going to be better than Shorekeeper on the whole, but rather within Toon Break teams. We obviously don't have any Toon Break DPS yet, so that is yet to be seen, but I do expect her to be a really good character on the whole, even regardless of Toon Break, and generally, she is just going to be a very, very valuable addition no matter what. If you don't have Shorekeeper, that only emphasizes the pull value of this character, and even if you do have Shorekeeper, then you know how valuable it is to have a character that is even just a little bit as good as her. So that is already a huge plus in regards to Mornye's pull value, and that is irrespective of Toon Break. But if we do focus a little bit on Toon Break, well then she is going to be Toon Break investment, and that is a very positive quality, because this means, if you pulled for Lynae, well then you're in luck, because I do expect Mornye to be an upscale to basically any team that Lynae is in. So, basically most of the teams in this game, because I do believe that Mornye is likely going to make Lynae stronger, and those two are going to form the strongest core in the game. Genuinely, a duo that you can slap on the end of a majority of DPSs aside from the negative status ones, and you're going to be able to see them perform. That is going to provide you with so much freaking value, it is unreal. Any DPS that you have outside of the negative status ones is going to easily be able to benefit from that core and thrive. So, not only is Mornye just an excellent general addition to your account, even if you take Toon Break out of the equation, but it is very likely that she is going to end up benefiting the currently existing second slot teammate for Toon Break that also just happens to be a universal support that is really, really good for a majority of characters on your account. You are getting insane bang for your ass strides with Mornye, no matter what way you look at it. If you skipped Lynae, not a problem. Mornye is still going to be fantastic. If you pulled Lynae, well then congratulations, you've got another upscale coming your way soon. And considering how Lynae's S1 isn't really all that good, and her signature weapon, while it's good, is skippable in favor of just using Static Mist instead, the most reasonable thing that you can do to make your Lynae stronger is pulling for Mornye, so it ends up working out perfectly for people that are generally interested in making their Lynae stronger. It is a literal win-win situation, so you don't only get a character that's just amazing for your overall account, which is especially more relevant now that we have a new endgame mode, meaning that you're gonna have another universal third slot teammate to work with, but you've also got a step ahead in the brand new region's gimmick. By investing into this character that is just generally good for your account, you end up with this character that is also able to benefit you in regards to the region's new gimmick. So you're naturally covering both grounds, which is absolutely excellent. So if you do end up pulling a Toon Break DPS down the line, as I do expect them to eventually make DPSs that revolve around the Toon Break mechanic, you're already going to have the best option possible for that DPS, at least in the third slot. I am not sure if you pulled Lynae or not, you yourself know that, but if you did pull for her, well then you've probably likely got the best core for whatever that future Toon Break DPS ends up being. Now like I said, I don't know how they're going to handle the future Toon Break DPS, but all I know is that it's very likely that Lynae and Mornye combined together are probably going to be very good for them, and even if not for whoever that DPS is, because who knows, maybe they don't even interact with Toon Break that much. I wouldn't really put that past Kuro considering that everybody can use Toon Break, it doesn't matter. You still get this core that is going to be good for a majority of main DPS characters in the game, and that really does mean something. Fantastic investment, no matter what way you look at it. Another thing is that she's going to be budget-friendly as well. Generally, when it comes to characters like Shorekeeper and Verena and those sorts, you don't really have to pull for them much. I do believe that her sequences are going to be good. Shorekeeper has a really good S2, for instance. However, Mornye is likely going to work perfectly fine outside of the box. I think that if her sequences are going to do anything, it's just going to put her on Shorekeeper's level, if not make her a little bit better, but I wouldn't really put that expectation on her. Try not to expect your Mornye to be as good as Shorekeeper. That is just a really high expectation to have. However, I do think that perhaps that's what's going to happen, if not just make Tomb Break teams stronger in general. However, I am expecting her complete budget form to still be absolutely incredible for any Wuthering Waves account, because generally you don't really have to invest as much into this type of unit. I didn't think that Kuro was going to make another Shorekeeper-like unit, but here we are. And granted, she is probably going to be more for Tomb Break characters, but I don't expect her to be restricted to that, which is excellent. And I also doubt that her signature weapon is going to be necessary. Generally, most third-slot teammates can have their signature skipped. It does depend. Chisa, for example, is an exception. You do want her signature weapon in order to yield the most value possible out of her. However, generally speaking, third-slot teammates, especially like this, can have their signature weapon skipped. Even more so than most second-slot teammates, because sometimes second-slot teammates do a lot of damage, like Brant Wuthering Waves or Yuno. I'm mostly using Shorekeeper as a reference point here. Her signature weapon is good, but it's not necessary. It is simply good. Not a redundant increase, you can still get something out of it, but it is definitely one of the lower value signature weapons in the game, and I would not be surprised if Mornye was similar. So she ends up being free-to-play friendly too, releasing after a character that was already very free-to-play friendly. It just keeps getting better. And another thing is that if you didn't pull for Lynae, or maybe you did and you're just using her in another team, you can still very much benefit from using Mornye in fusion teams most likely. She herself is fusion, I would not be surprised if she's able to benefit those types of characters. So Brant Wuthering Waves DPS teams, teams that involve Lupa, anything with Galbraina in it, etc., you get the point. I do believe that Mornye is going to be able to benefit those types of characters as well. So if you're really into fusion teams, then that's another consideration that you can make. I do believe that Mornye is going to be quite good there. And another pro that I want to emphasize is that she is an S-tier unit. Like, I feel like this on its own is quite a selling point. I do believe that she is going to be an S-tier pull for a vast majority of players. A vast majority, this is going to be an S-tier pull. It is very hard to think of a situation in which he's not going to be one. At least with Lynae. Okay, sure, some people made negative status characters, they're not really going to be benefiting from the upscale that is Lynae. However, with Mornye, that's not really the case. You can still use her with negative status characters as a third slot. Now, I don't necessarily think that it's going to be better than Shorekeeper or other options for these characters, but the point stands that quite literally every character is going to be able to use Mornye. I do believe that Shorekeeper will be better, but the thing is, there is only one Shorekeeper. You can only use Shorekeeper so many times. Or, to be more specific, 2 times within Middle Tower because of the 5 energy cost. You get the point. There is only so many uses of these characters, and having more characters like them is a good thing. So all around, Mornye just benefits you in every conceivable way. The only real flaw that I can think of, based on what we officially know right now, is that it is likely that she is going to prefer to have Lynae in her team, because she is also a Tomb Break character, and it is likely that those two are going to form an extremely strong team core together. Without Lynae, I do still think that Mornye is going to be an excellent pull. However, the pull is only going to be amplified in value by quite a significant margin if you do have Lynae. And the fact that it is a significant margin is significant in of itself, because I believe that even without Lynae, it is still going to be a very strong pull, and you're still going to be benefiting a lot, especially if you like fusion characters, which Kuro makes quite a lot of. So with that all in mind, I will say I do think that she would prefer to have Lynae in her teams, but I wouldn't really treat this as a deal breaker. Mornye is still a very good unit. If you're wondering whether you should get Lynae or Mornye if you lost your Lynae 50-50, I have already made a video discussing that, so I would check that out. But generally, I would say that Mornye is still a very good pull on her own if that's something that you were worried about, or if you simply just don't want to pull for Lynae and you prefer Mornye as a character. Don't worry, she is still going to be plenty strong irrespective of whether you have a Lynae on your account or not, so that's not going to be a concern for you. But all around, even if you don't have that character, and if you just look at Mornye on her own, There is so much value packed into this release, it is actually absurd. I find this really funny because usually whenever Kuro makes a third slot teammate, they tend to be kind of underwhelming. Chisa wasn't really that good, Roshia was rubbish from moment one. She had her 15 minutes of fame until my goat Choyuwen completely knocked her out of the meta. So, all around, most third slot teammates that Kuro makes, they tend not to be that good, and they're never really better than the budget options that are available. But no, with Mornye, they just decided, okay, scratch that, we're gonna make this one absolutely busted and an absolute amazing pull. I will say, relax, she's not a must pull. I'm sure that the prospect of a must pull sounds very threatening, but she isn't. There's no such thing as a must pull in Wuthering Waves, but I feel like that's obvious enough. Shorekeeper is basically the closest thing that we have to a must pull, but it would be disingenuous of me to say that this character would not benefit you greatly, so I will be honest to say that if there was a must pull, she would be close to it. Hopefully this video is able to tell you Mornye's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and also she is freaking beautiful, so I feel like that on its own is a reason to get her. Just look at her, she's crazy.